Hello, everyone. This is Misty Magdalena Grace. If you have never met me before, I go by Magdalena for short. And today I'm really excited to give this special, unedited, not the usual intro and outro for my podcast, because I just really wanted to speak from the heart today and share with you a very personal, very deep message. And just take about maybe 15 minutes of time to share with you the mission and vision of the Lotus Throne Foundation. If you haven't followed me, or maybe you have and you just didn't understand what this Lotus Throne thing is all about, I first want to explain the story of how this foundation has come into existence and is being birthed. And then, of course, what is the mission and vision, and why should you care, and what could you possibly do to make a difference and make an impact, especially since the big core of our foundation is about saving lives, not only saving lives and survival, but thriving as it relates to grief recovery, addiction recovery. And as I explain my mission and vision and story, it'll all make sense. So I am a healer. I'm a combo medicine practitioner. I am a shadow work specialist. I have a background in health, fitness, nutrition, as well as in business and sales coaching, etc. However, 4 years ago, if you've been following me, you know this story already. So I'm going to keep it short. I had hit rock bottom. I was a binge drinking workaholic who really did not really want to be alive anymore. Didn't want to be married anymore. Didn't want to adult anymore. I was in a career where I was making tons of money, and of course, working 7 days a week, being all things for all people. Had a lot of people pleasing behaviors, which I didn't know at that time were deeply seated trauma responses from both childhood, but also generational, ancestral, and all of that. And so I hit that, rock bottom. A really amazing person came into my life and said, you're going to be a healer and a teacher someday, but you got to heal, basically. You've got to go inward and do the work, kind of an inner quest, an inner journey of surrender. And I did that. And it was about a 2.5 year process starting in 2021. And through that, I did a lot of medicine work, shamanism, spiritual teaching, shadow work, breath work, meditation, microdosing, combo frog medicine, so on and so forth. And a lot of it was mind, body, spirit work. Going inward doesn't just mean meditation, it means physical healing. So a lot of central nervous system, a lot of somatic release of trauma. The body keeps the score. I was holding on tightly, white knuckling it through life. And through all of that, I was able to heal at the deepest core level. My husband joined me. Now he is a shaman and does a lot of amazing healing work. Especially our favorite is addiction and grief recovery, because that's where we were at. Especially, telling you my story, what I realized was that I was miserable, wanting to die, and drinking too much, working too much social media, a lot of over consuming of everything, and being a people pleaser, all things to all people, available 24/7 via text message and social media, always having like an OCD response of having to respond to people right away. I had no boundaries, okay? And so the roots of that, it wasn't about the alcohol, it wasn't about the social media. It was actually, deeply held, unprocessed grief and trauma. And so a lot of that could not be gotten rid of through psychotherapy, grief counseling, subconscious mind work. I tried it all. A lot of it was focused on the head brain and not helping the body. And so a lot of the work that I did as I was healing the mind through the body and spiritual practice, not religious, but spiritual practice, meditation, making things more sacred in my life, honoring food, honoring the land, honoring every being in my life as well. First, by starting with myself and my own soul, and my own journey, and my own shadows and pain and forgiveness, love, compassion, all of that came forward. And along the way, I had lost 12 friends to suicide. I lost a brother to alcoholism, and many others, clients, friends, colleagues, to addiction. And at one point, it was actually 3 years ago this month, as I was just beginning my healing journey, I had a vision. It was in a medicine ceremony, working with amazing healers, teachers, facilitators. I had a vision, and within that vision, I saw all of my friends who had committed suicide. I saw my brother. My parents had already passed, so I saw them. I also saw famous people, so like Prince, Chris Cornell, Robin Williams, different people who had either died by addiction or grief, or sorry, suicide, and they all were lined up in front of me, looking at me. And actually, they were all on my father's farm, which we had already sold by the time this had happened. So it was very, very connected to my childhood. And they all were cheering me on, and they said, "You're doing the work that we couldn't." I had my own version of suicide headed my way if I didn't take care of myself through addictions and all of the things that were destroying my body. And you're healing the things, the mother wound, the father wound, the ancestral baggage that keeps generational cycle repeating over and over until you do something different, right? And so they told me this, and that I was going to make a difference in the world, and this was going to be my. They didn't say it this way. They were kind of preparing me to help go further on my journey, to recognize that this was my calling, my purpose, my passion, my mission in life, which is now being born 3 years later through my nonprofit, the Lotus Throne Foundation. So ultimately, that's the short version of the story. Is they cheered me on at the beginning of my healing journey, and they kept coming back. Whether you believe in ghosts, spirits, whatever you believe in is perfect. Their energy, their spirits came to me again and again and again and again and again and again, cheering me on and also helping me heal the grief, the unprocessed trauma, the mother wound, the father wound. There's a lot of other things, but to keep it simple, a lot of people I've discovered that commit suicide or die by addiction just merely didn't get to the root causes of uncovering what it was that was causing them pain. And so about 2 years ago, my husband and I started doing some of the, humble beginnings of our own for-profit business healing work. And we started seeing the same exact patterns in our clients as we did in ourselves and our friends who committed suicide and those who died by addiction. There was patterns repeating in their family lineage. Their parent was an alcoholic, or their grandmother was an alcoholic, or their sibling was an alcoholic. They were raised by alcoholics. Or, someone had died by suicide in their family, and they had a lot of trauma, unresolved trauma around that, which was, again, a huge part of what I was experiencing. And so through that process of healing myself at the deepest level, and then spending over 1.5 years now, seeing those same exact patterns, my husband and I figured out why we're here. I'm about to share with you the mission and vision, but also the quote, the famous quote by Mark Twain is this: "The two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why." I'm kind of shocked I'm not crying, because I've shared this with many people, and I cry almost every time I share this story. But right now, I feel so much gratitude. With all the grief that I processed, all the loss that I've had, all of it was perfect and led me to this moment. And to be grateful for my addictions, grateful for my traumas, grateful for that affliction to lead me to this moment. A lot of times, those who died by suicide or addiction, they don't get to that level of healing. And oftentimes, they leave behind family, friends, people who might be carrying guilt, shame. What if? I wish I should have done this, or I could have done that. Why didn't they help? Why didn't they call me? Why didn't they ask for help? Things of that nature. Well, If you have been impacted by suicide, or if you've been impacted by alcoholism or drug addiction, any of those things, this is your opportunity to maybe find out why these things happened for you, for them. Is maybe it was a message. Maybe it was supposed to help us wake up, to love one another, to heal at the deepest level, to break these repetitive generational cycles. The percentages are really high. I don't have them memorized, but I've heard at one point the percentage of suicide repeating in a family is somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 to 50%. Addiction is higher. So we want to be the change we want to see in the world of healing and give people hope. So you can go to lotusthronesanctuary.org to read more. And right now I want to share with you our mission and our vision, and I have a request and an ask for help, because I've learned asking for help is not a sign of weakness. So our mission at the Lotus Throne Sanctuary and the Lotus Throne Foundation is to break the generational cycles of addiction and suicide, because I do believe they're generational. We want to be the change we want to see in the world by opening people's hearts and minds to the topics of suicide and addiction by giving hope through healing. So a lot of times these, mental health conversations, suicide conversations, addiction conversations are stigmatized and not always easy. And that's understandable. Death has got a lot of, bad stigma, and especially in America. A lot of times people die and within 3 days they're buried, and people go back to their lives and don't get proper support for grief recovery and healing, or they just don't know. I didn't even know there was such a thing as grief recovery after my dad, mom, and brother died, and all those friends died. I didn't know. Even if I had known, getting immediate support is not common. A lot of times people will grieve for decades and never truly recover. And we don't want that for people. So to extend that vision, or rather mission statement of breaking the generational cycles of addiction and suicide, being the change we want to see in the world, opening people's hearts and minds to the topics of suicide and addiction by giving hope and healing. Our vision is to serve 100 clients in 12 months who have been impacted, left behind, stricken by grief, loss of a loved one to suicide or addiction-related deaths. Be able to give them support, love, and the deepest healing possible with scholarships to our healing services here at the Lotus Throne and the other services of our partners who specialize in different modalities of mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual health that aligns with our mission. So again, go to lotusthronesanctuary.org to read more. If you have a desire to help, here's my ask. It's 2 or 3 things, really simple. Number 1, hit the share button and share this with someone you know, like, and trust. Maybe someone who's been impacted by this suicide or addiction-related deaths. Number 2, share with someone that you know is maybe a healer that might want to have a conversation and be a part of our network. Number 3, going to lotusthronesanctuary.org and making sure that you can donate money, you can donate time. I have a list of volunteer options for you. We have a silent auction, a live auction. We're doing events in September for Suicide Awareness Month and November for the Day of the Dead weekend. So I'm just really excited to have this conversation today, to share our truth, to speak our mission and vision, and to ask for help. Who do you know that has been impacted by suicide and grief related to addiction-related deaths that is still hurting and maybe can't afford healing? And maybe the psychotherapy model hasn't really done the best job it possibly could for them, and they're still deeply hurting and suffering, needlessly, I might add. Finding community, finding support can be the hardest thing when you're suffering with grief. I know. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. We can't do this without you. And again, our vision in our first year is to serve 100 people. And for that, we're going to be asking for $500,000 in donations through our fundraisers and through our sponsors and our partners. So take a look at that website. Let me know if you have any questions. and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Again, this is Magdalena Grace signing off. Here's to your best health, your best wealth, by trusting your best wisdom. Bye-bye for now.